Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Jason Luna-tic, another edition of Jason's Luna-tic take on comic books tick. The second tick is silent. If you like what you're seeing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments what I'm doing wrong. Anyway, no clear comic book properties this week. At the box office, we have The Green Knight, which makes me think of the Black Knight from Marvel, Dane Whitman, if he got sick and ate some bad clams. And then we also have Stillwater, which stars Matt Damon, who, fun fact, was offered the part of Daredevil before Ben Affleck took it to amazing acclaim. And then, Disney owns Marvel. They're releasing The Jungle Cruise, which makes me think of course, the Black Panther, and of course, Quicksilver, because he loves a good cruise. Although he's more of a full speed pace, more than a cruising pace. Anyway, still waiting for what if to come out. So it's like I could have done one of those 3 things I mentioned just now, but instead I'm gonna do the top 10 comic book rivalries. I'm not editing this one. Next week I will start editing. But until then, I'm just gonna manual editing, star wipes. Okay, top 10 comic book rivalries. It's a little, whatever. Here we go. I'm gonna explain some things, give some opinions. You get it. Let's get to it. Top 10 comic book rivalries. Number 10, Superman and Lex Luthor. This one, it feels more delineated in hindsight, looking at what we have now, than what we had back then. Let me explain. So Superman comes along from Krypton, raised on Earth. He's Earth's champion, this big superhero, and Luthor comes along, and it's not the Lex Luthor we know. He has more hair, and he's more of a, this is like the 30s, 20s, 30s. He's like a world conqueror type, way more generic. And he fights Superman for a while, and he gets repackaged in, I want to say the 50s. I feel like the 50s or the 60s is when most of these repackagings happens, as the businessman who fights with Superman. And then let's see, why is this rivalry so great? I think it's because Superman is ostensibly invulnerable. I mean, sure, you get kryptonite, you get magic, you have a chance, but how do you fight a guy who only has those very specific weaknesses? And I think Lex Luthor's sort of insidious business tactics are a brilliant way of getting at Superman in an indirect way, where Superman can't just punch his way out, So I think that's why it's a real juicy rivalry. And Superman has hair, Lex Luthor doesn't. So you got the whole spectrum of male anxieties. Like, I have hair, I'm blessed, but I gotta comb it every day. There's inherent anxieties to any situation. That's what I'm saying. So that's a great rivalry. Rivalry number 2. Starting to get tricky here. Oh, these are not ranked in any particular order. I think it's dramatic intent. They're all great. 10 great rivalries. That's great. Start right. Number 2 is Spider-Man versus Peter Parker. And I know what you're thinking. They're the same person. But hear me out, okay? Peter Parker has plans in life that are pretty clear. He's got to help his Aunt May. He's got to go to school, get a job, be a good friend to his friends, make money and be successful. But then he's got this whole thing on top of it. The great power and the great responsibility. Uncle Ben's dead. He's Spider-Man. He's got to help people. He's got to save lives. And the comics do a great job, movies do this as well, of demonstrating Peter Parker's on the cusp of doing something as Peter Parker, but Spider-Man comes along, he goes away, the Thing falls apart, Spider-Man's very unlucky in love, he's attached to a Betty Brant, a receptionist at the Daily Bugle. Betty Brant's brother dies, she blames it on Spider-Man, they sort of have a falling out. Gwen Stacy, spoiler alert, gets killed by the Green Goblin as a revenge tactic against Spider-Man. So that's not good for Peter Parker's life progression. And Mary Jane, they get together eventually, but there's a lot of misconnections because of the Spider-Man thing and not being able to be full-time. So it's most superheroes get by with their secret identities. A lot of them are wealthy, like Batman, or they just don't dwell on it like Superman or most DC superheroes up until, God, I don't know, 1980, which is, there's a whole history of comic books before DC got modern, if you know what I'm saying. So, it's realistic. We all have responsibilities in life that prevent us from doing things we want to do, and having romantic success or financial success. And so Spider-Man is Peter Parker is battling Spider-Man while being Spider-Man. Great psychological warfare. Number 3, Batman versus the Joker. It's so obvious, but that's why it's on the list. So, Batman, loses his parents, but he's rich. That's a good bargain, I guess. He becomes a superhero with technology and his own karate skills. The drill. And the Joker comes along, and I think, what knocks it off a peg a little bit is that kind of like Lex Luthor with the generic world-conquering megalomaniac, the Joker came along a little too early, like the 30s. So there's a bit of a backstory or a rivalry. The Joker's insane, the Batman's sane, Joker's a villain, a murderous villain, Batman's a hero who doesn't kill anyone. So there's this antagonism of Joker's crazy and Batman's trying to save not just his victims, but the Joker himself, and the Joker doesn't want it, and blah, blah, blah. But, in the 30s, he was a little murderous and a little interesting as a villain, but, it's underwritten, which is fine. We're developing here. But in the 50s and the 60s, Batman, I think, got the biggest regression. We have this comics code authority comes along in reaction to Frederick Wertham's book saying that comic books are this evil thing that turns kids gay and has them kill people and all these terrible things. So Batman became he pulled back. It became a very conservative approach to Batman. It's more of a silly comic book, nothing too dangerous, nothing too risky. So the Joker literally became a guy who wanted to tell jokes, do jokes. So it's not really a rivalry. I mean, it's like I guess a little annoying. Batman has to take time out of his day, but it's not like Spider-Man where Bruce Wayne's got bills to pay or a girlfriend or something. He just got to go. Bing bang boom, Joker, you're done. So the rivalry really became succinct, I think, in the 80s, maybe a little bit in the 70s, but in the 80s, Alan Moore's Killing Joke, where we really see Joker is wielding insanity as a tool to torture Batman and push against Batman. It's not enough to beat Batman. He wants Batman to break, to puncture his moral code. And I think it's a little heavy-handed, honestly. Yeah. I mean, your motivation as a villain is to directly antagonize one guy. It's just, but at the same time, it's iconic and it's unique to a degree. And the Joker has the permanent makeup on. Batman, no makeup, not even a little rouge. He's got those cheeks up and open. He's very bold with that. And the Joker wears garish colors. Batman wears black. So we get a very, a child who has never seen this before sees Batman and Joker and can figure out there's something going on here, some antagonism. and it's very iconic. And we, got the Dark Knight. Technically got the Suicide Squad. Not the Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, the bad one. So bad it's good. It's fine. It's fine. Very iconic. Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. Iconic. Talk to death, but you get the idea from previous things I said. Star Wipe. I'm great at these transitions. Number 4 on this not ranked list. Captain America versus the Red Skull. So this is interesting because the MCU gives you one image of this, and the comics give you another. In the MCU, I mean, the backstory is the same. Captain America gets super soldier serum, becomes the super soldier of the U.S. Army fighting the Nazis. Red Skull's a Nazi. He's a bigwig scientist and villain. So they got an antagonism. The interesting split is, in the movies, the Red Skull is defeated by getting the Tesseract. He's like, I got this Tesseract. I'm gold. But then he gets sent to the planet with the stone. He's guarding the stone for all eternity, and I don't know. But that takes him out of the equation. In the comics, Captain America, just like in the movies, Captain America, he slips on an ice cube. He's out for many, many years, and he comes back. The Red Skull just came back. He's there. There's no resolution in World War II. Red Skull also survived the time difference. So they have back and forth, and they fight. And, yeah, the fighting is a little generic, for lack of a better term. I think it's because the Red Skull's motivations are, very direct. I mean, an officer of the Nazi regime becomes a world domination guy. Just like Luthor before he became Sexy Lexi, businessman Lex Luthor. Red Skull had no such transformation. He sort of was a military guy who wasn't in the military anymore, but still wanted to conquer the world. It's like a one-man Nazi regime. The look is very iconic. I mean, talk about differences, antagonisms. The Red Skull has a red skull for a head, and Captain America has a normal head with a, he's got a mask on. Red Skull doesn't have a mask, I guess. Is that a mask? Let me know in the comments if the Red Skull's head is actually his head. I always thought, you kind of think it is because they don't show you without it, but it'd be weird. And, it's easy to be jaded in the modern day, but it's very cool antagonism, Nazis are bad. Hopefully I don't have to clarify that too much. And Captain America is not a Nazi who thinks Nazis are bad and wants to stop them. It's a very easy to identify with antagonism. It doesn't have the speculative, what's the motivation, like a Batman v Joker, but it has the, I know who I want to win at all times. And that's a plus. No, that's a thumbs up. That's a plus. Star Wipe. You can't see me. Number 5 on this unranked list. Fantastic Four versus Doctor Doom. Fantastic Four are scientist, his wife. The wife's, girlfriend at the time. Wow. Scientist, his girlfriend. The girlfriend's kid sister. And then the best friend of the scientist on a space mission. Get the radioactivity. Get the powers. Stretchy. Invisibly. Fiery. Thingy. Big rock guy. Coolio. So, the backstory is convoluted, but I don't know, I was going to say it works, but you tell me. So, when Reed Richards was in college, he had a roommate, Victor Von Doom, which is not foreshadowing or character implying at all. And they were both science guys, but Victor Von Doom did an experiment in his room. The experiment exploded and disfigured his face, and he wore a metal mask, and he blamed Reed Richards for the accident, for ruining his life. And by the way, Dr. Victor Von Doom, let's call him Dr. Doom for short because we focus on the important things. Dr. Victor doesn't have the same pizzazz. He's also the the sovereign of Latveria, which is like sort of like the USSR, or some kind of communist kingdom with a cruel dictatorship, but it's its own thing. It's not like linked to anything, any other countries. And Latveria, and he keeps his citizens looking like peasants. Well, he lives in a castle with futuristic technology, and he's trying to conquer the world, but also to kill Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four. So this is weird because it sounds like a great rivalry because they have the personal relationship, but a college roommate you stop seeing for a while is not the greatest mortal nemesis pitch I would get. You know, why not be like Doctor Doom was on the Fantastic Four? I mean, God, the 2005 movie with Jessica Alba, they did that. Doctor Doom was on the mission and got the radiation, and he got magnetic powers because give Doctor Doom powers. That'll satisfy someone. So anyway, yeah, that, you know, it's weird because they're supposed to be old friends, but they're not really. I mean, they are, but they don't. You don't feel it in the comics. And what else is there to say, really? I mean, Doctor Doom is very intelligent and clever in his schemes, and in the modern age, he becomes even more. You know, he manipulates the Beyond powers to become the ruler of the universe in one of the Secret Wars comics and stuff like that. So he's pretty cool, pretty smart, smarter than the average Latvian bear. But it's not really a Fantastic Four thing. I mean, Reed Richards is smart, also, but everyone's smart in comic books. You know, they got to be clever enough to figure things out and win every issue. So, smart versus smart, it's all right. It's fun to read. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, that was like the first thing they did that was prominent. It's like their prime. What else? Anything else? Oh, Doctor Doom has a disfigured face that he covers with the metal armor. Reed Richards, you know, 50s dad look, no mask, stretchy. Doctor Doom's not stretchy. Has technology. Reed Richards has technology in his building. It's like computers and shit. Okay, I'm trying to think of a capper here. This rivalry's okay, fantastic. More like the okay for Star Wipe. Number 6. A little more weird now. The Green Arrow versus his wealth. So I don't know what the Green Arrow's antagonist in the comics is. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty. Green Arrow, unfortunately, you know, he's an old character, like say Batman or Superman, but he never really got the support like those guys. Those guys got their own books. Superman and Batman had 2 books each. Superman had Superman and Action Comics. Batman has Batman and Detective Comics. Anyway, Green Arrow never, if he had his own book, it fell apart by the 50s or 60s. He was always a backup thing. So he never really got that little 20-pager story where it's like, oh, I gotta fight this guy, and oh, it's hard, and tell you the backstory. No, it's like, he goes on a little adventure, takes out a small criminal, and so there's no real direct antagonism. What is antagonistic is, like Batman, since it's a theme here, like Batman, he is a wealthy kid, and he gets trapped on this island, and he learns archery skills, and he becomes like a superhero. And I think what I'm trying to get at is Batman exceeded the rich boy thing because of the pathos of his origin and the attention to detail. Green Arrow was kind of like, oh, I'm rich, and I'm good with arrows. And the fighting crime just never really caught up with that. It felt very loose, low stakes. You got a sidekick named Speedy. Who was also good with bow and arrows. It didn't really help that much, you know. just a lot more fanciful and fun than Batman. So of course, DC recognized this problem, so they went like a big turn. You know, they put him in the Justice League. That didn't change anything. But then they're like, what if he had a goatee and a mustache? And then what if he became like this angry liberal? And so of course they did that. He was in Green Arrow, Green Lantern, one of the greatest comic book arcs ever. Denny O'Neil and the artist. I think I did this before. Great artist. Anyway, come on. Yeah. So, and they try to take away his wealth, his relationship with Black Canary. I feel like it's just they're always reacting to this unfortunate afterthought character they gave him. I mean, he's like a supporting character in Detective Comics or something with these 7-page stories. Oh, I think it was Adventure Comics. That was Superboy. That's 3 for Superman, 0 for Green Arrow in the 60s. And yeah, it's just big afterthought, and mostly he's a spoiled rich guy who fights crime not as well as Batman. Number 7, Wolverine versus the Burden of Expectations. There was a brief period where Wolverine was not the most awesome character in comic books. Whether or not you agree with that statement, it's become a pop culture cliche that he's so cool. You know, he started out as it was Incredible Hulk. Incredible Hulk was in Canada fighting the Wendigo, which is it's like the Yeti or Bigfoot or something. You know, you get it. And Wolverine shows up, and he's an officer of the Canadian Army. And he has his costume and stuff, and he fights Hulk. He wasn't super cool then, but then Chris Claremont and Len Wein were like, he should be in the new X-Men in the 70s. And that became the biggest thing ever. Arguably the most critically acclaimed monthly comic book of all time. And Wolverine got way popular, got his own comic book. Probably got multiple own comic books, I don't know. And then the X-Men cartoon show, he's so cool. And then Hugh Jackman played him in the movies. So it's just like, it's so difficult to develop a Wolverine property now, because you're playing against these memories of awesomeness from the past. And I feel like you hear that a lot. The rumors you hear about the MCU and the X-Men and stuff. Like, who's going to play Wolverine? People are still talking like maybe Hugh Jackman will do it after he retired. Because it's just, he's so ensconced in the role. The comics are reacting to Hugh Jackman. So Wolverine, he has an indestructible adamantium skeleton, a healing factor, great at combat, will kill you, his claws in his hands, but it's the stagnation of the property because it's so popular. What a nice problem to have, you know? Starlight. Iron Man versus being lame. Yeah, I stand by this. Iron Man is a weird character to me in terms of his popularity. I'll explain. You know, I think the MCU handled this very well because they cast Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. is cool. So if the guy is Robert Downey Jr., you'll watch him do anything. In all those movies. Very snarky, very witty, sort of humanistic, but with a gruff exterior, lots of jokes and stuff. 60s Marvel comic books did not have Robert Downey Jr. on the page. Would that have helped? It would still be Stan Lee writing his dialogue. No offense. But, so, Tony Stark is basically Howard Hughes, or very close. You know, he's sort of an inventor, but he's also a contractor, factory owner, works for the government, and he becomes a superhero. And it's like the superhero part's pretty cool. They designed some flying metal suit mechanics and things, but this stiff white businessman alter ego it's just not helping. It's not the cutting edge, and I think they knew that in the comics, so they try to mess it up. Like Green Arrow, I think was much more successful at this, the the goatee, but Tony Stark already had a beard thing going on, not as exciting. Maybe they make Tony Stark an alcoholic, which gives it some depth, makes you go, wow, a comic book's talking about alcoholism, but it's like, it's not as effortless as Wolverine or Incredible Hulk or something. So I think that was an issue of Iron Man, and still is, in my opinion. It's like the action has to compensate so much because of the story, stilted backstory. And I thought, Stan Lee said the comic book in the '60s, like, he's innovative because he's a young man's game. He give you Spider-Man, give you all these people with relatable problems. Things like, oh, this rich guy needs to escape from a POW camp. Fine. Fine. Start right. Number 9. Ant-Man versus Relevance. So, the comic books kind of mirror the movies in a weird way. I mean, people like Ant-Man in the movies, MCU movies, because Paul Rudd is so likable. Ant-Man was hilarious. Ant-Man vs. Ant-Man the Wasp was also pretty funny. And there's going to be more movies with Ant-Man in it. So, but it's like they knew. They made the layout of the MCU. They're like, we got the core Avengers that's going to be in Avengers. Ant-Man's going to come in later. Secondary Avenger. Comics didn't know what to do with him. Because, it started out pretty simple. Hank Pym is researching ants, like you do. And he shrinks himself down to ant size, and he's with the ants, he's all creeped out. And he gets out of there. And he builds a cybernetic helmet to talk to the ants and develop powers. And simultaneously invents shrinking to various sizes and fights crime. And the action was great in that. But, it's hard. Like, DC Comics has the Atom, and they have a similar problem, which is that not a similar problem, but Atom's moveset is so different from everyone else, and it's cool. Shrinks down, comes back up. He can punch people while he's shrunk at a man's strength. And Marvel did not do like the Atom, where they said, we'll stick with the Atom as the Atom, we'll make it work. Ant-Man, they're like, oh god, he's different. We gotta make him more like the other ones, so they make Giant Man, who can grow big. And then it's like, you're already in a... if you think that's a solution, then it's not. Because you got the Incredible Hulk. You got... he's not as big, but Thor has strength. Captain America has implied strength. God, Iron Man has strength. And so, Giant Man, he fit in okay in an Avengers type deal, but it wasn't gonna give him the solo success because he didn't have a hook of his own. It's a derivation of the Incredible Hulk, among others. So, at least Iron Man being alcoholic, you say, I can relate to that on some level. We all have a relation with alcohol or with addiction in general or something. Hank Pym starts beating his wife. The Wasp. That's not cool, obviously. So it's like, you got this marginal character, and now he can't handle being a superhero. Hawkeye takes his powers and becomes Goliath for a while. It's just, he's slipping and slipping. And then, when I get literal about this, they're like, you know what we need to do? Square one, new Ant-Man. Like in the movie, well, not like the movie, but Scott Lang's gonna have an adventure and become the new Ant-Man. Hank Pym is gonna step back and be a marginal supporting character we can forget about and stuff. And I don't know why they thought Scott Lang would be better than Hank Pym. You know, in the movies, you got Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas as the two, right? Michael Douglas, very iconic, likable actor with great range and sophistication. Paul Rudd, similarly hilarious, good actor. You get the vibes and you get the, oh, I know who this is and I like this. Hank Pym is like a scientist with light brown hair. Scott Lang in the comics isn't even like really younger. He's a little younger with darker hair maybe. I love darker hair, but you know, it's not a catch. So Scott Lang inevitably had even less pull than Hank Pym. At least Hank Pym was an original Avenger. He was in the Ant-Man, original Ant-Man comics. So it just sort of smacked of a little laziness. I think Ant-Man was a novel concept, although, I don't know which came first, the atom or the ant. Atom ant. Don't unplug the jukebox and do us all the favor. Let me know in the comments which was it, Ant-Man or Atom first. So yeah, the comics after that, it's after Scott Lang, is just Hank Pym floats in and out, Scott Lang floats in and out. The MCU might help boost some. It's the most popular they've ever been in their lives, which is sad. Sad, because the original Ant-Man comics were good. Everything else, okay. And finally, it's gone on long enough. Number 10 is the Watchmen comic versus Alan Moore. So of course, Watchmen has nothing against Alan Moore. If anything, Watchmen is indebted to Alan Moore. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons did, I think, I like Alan Moore's other books as well, so I don't know if it's number one, but Watchmen is easily one of the greatest graphic novels, comic book projects ever undertaken. With its rich exploration of what it means to be a superhero and dystopian politics, and it's just great. I don't know what to say. If you haven't read it, you should read it. If you haven't watched the movie, the book's better, but the books are always better. Let me know in the comments. Are books always better than the movies? Film at 11. Okay, so anyway, my point, so here's the thing, right? The book is amazing. The book ends. And you got a two-pronged problem. Number one, Watchmen is iconic, remembered by all, and beloved. Kind of like Wolverine, but Wolverine at least is ongoing. Chris Claremont and Len Wein have some origins on Wolverine, but other writers and artists can do it and try to recapture. It has its own problems. But Watchmen, Alan Moore does that. He's done. Alan Moore is more likely to retire from comics entirely than he is to revisit something. It's not going to happen. So you got this iconic comic book everyone remembers, like Watchmen, and you got no Alan Moore doing more Watchmen. So you got other people doing Watchmen to a certain degree. There's the Doomsday Clock series, the movie. Wait, what's his face? Let me know in the comments. What's his face's name? The HBO show, which I've heard good things about. Haven't watched it. I'll just say it's good, but it's got that specter of we only got the one thing, and it's the greatest thing ever, but we got to get the sequel. Wolverine and the Uncanny X-Men. We got the Wolverine comic. We got every Wolverine comic and movies and blah blah blah. Alan Moore didn't contribute to the Zack Snyder, what's his name, I got it. Uh, didn't contribute to the Zack Snyder movie. It's not contributing anything, and it's never going to be the same. I don't care what writer you get. How are you going to capture that sort of unique worldview that Alan Moore has, so that it kills the credibility of the Watchmen, like, right away? And I think in some ways that's good. You know, bring a new IP by skilled writers who, in their own way, can be as good as Alan Moore. But at the same time, it's weird that the greatest thing ever can never exist again. You know, it's like we got two Troll movies. And sure, Troll 2 is not related to Troll 1, but they're both not great. We got two of those. One Watchmen. All right, folks. That went on longer. I will start editing these. Don't worry. Let me know in the comments what you'd like me to talk about on future episodes. In a few weeks, couple weeks, I will start to address the what if in the room. Until then, I will see you next week. Comic Talk from Jason's Luna-tic take on comic books tick.